So here's the breaking news. Hundreds of thousands of low-income residents in Massachusetts will soon be receiving $500 checks from the state of Massachusetts. The administration in the state unveiled new plans for distribution of the cash payments, and the payments worth around $250 million in total will be mailed to 500,000 people by the end of March. According to the state, this is the first round of funds being distributed as part of the $460 million program enacted last year. And last December, when Governor Charlie Baker signed a $4 billion spending plan for American Rescue Plan Act funds. The state is basing payment on filed 2020 Massachusetts tax returns, and people will be eligible for payments if their income from employment was at least $12,750, and their total income puts them below 300% of the federal poverty level. Now, the federal poverty level is set by the federal government and increases with household or family size. According to the state, the maximum total income for a single filer with no dependents will be around $38,280. An important note also, everybody, is that the state has said that people who received unemployment compensation in 2020 will not be eligible for the first round of payments. Also, executive branch employees who received or receive a one-time payment from the state as their employer are also not eligible. The state says information on plans to distribute subsequent rounds of funds after March will be released in the future. The legislation creating the premium pay program included $500 million for low-income essential workers. This $460 million program, everybody, comprises the majority of those funds, and $40 million was allocated to fund previous agreements with state employee unions. Virginia taxpayers will also likely get some money back this year. The General Assembly is expected to approve one-time rebates to eligible state income tax filers, but lawmakers are still debating how much. Unlike some tax policy proposals, the campaign promise from the governor has won broad bipartisan support. But the former governor proposed his own version of the plan with a smaller price tag before leaving office. Now, the IRS, everybody, has also issued more than 169 million payments in the third round of stimulus checks, with the $1,400 checks reaching the most people. As the crisis continues, more advocates and lawmakers are pushing for a fourth round. It would effectively send recurring payments until the crisis ends. So far, the federal response to the economic crisis has paid out $3,200 to eligible adults. But still, that's not enough, as many people are still suffering. Despite the financial assistance, millions of people remain in financial distress, and a recent surge in the crisis is only creating new economic headwinds. Do you think that President Biden should send out more checks, everybody? Tell me in the comments down below.
Madam President, first I want to thank my colleague, Senator Lee from Utah, for his leadership on these issues, trying to make sure that the legislation we pass is legislation they will all have the opportunity to participate in. I've been disappointed that I'm on the committee that deals with the Postal Service, and we didn't even have a vote on this. I didn't have any opportunity in the committee to propose an amendment. It doesn't look like I'm going to have an opportunity here to have my colleagues vote on an amendment, and I don't think that's right. The amendment I'm going to talk about today is co-sponsored by Senators Johnson, Grassley, Braun, and Langford, and I want to thank them for their support. I absolutely support getting something done to reform the Postal Service and ensure it's more accountable to taxpayers. Unfortunately, the bill before us doesn't do that. This legislation would add at least $6 billion in new costs to Medicare without any plan to pay for it. $6 billion, no plan to pay for it. And at least $5 billion to our federal debt, a debt that's already surging above $30 trillion. I think we all should say that's unacceptable. This bill doesn't reduce costs. It just shifts them from one unfunded government program to another unfunded government program. And let's remember, Medicare costs are already skyrocketing, further jeopardizing Medicare as a disservice to the 60 million Americans, including the 4.5 million Floridians who rely on it. My amendment would fix this. It would just require the Postal Service to pay for any new cost to Medicare that this bill will bring. This bill will ensure that Medicare isn't used like a piggy bank, that the taxpayer and future non-postal retirees aren't forced to bear the burden of this Postal Service bailout. And the Postal Service should pay their fair share. Madam President, I want to make this next point very clear. My amendment's germane, and it deserves a simple majority vote, and it deserves a vote. I'm thankful I have the support of groups like 60 Plus and the Association of Mature American Citizens that represent the interest of America's seniors, and I urge my colleagues to support this. Madam President, I ask unanimous consent to set aside the pending amendment and call up Amendment 4933. Further, that the amendment be reported by number and there be 2 minutes of debate, equally divided on the amendment, and the Senate then vote on adoption of the amendment with no intervening action or debate.
Is there objection?
Madam President, reserving the right to object.
Senator from Michigan.
Madam President, I oppose the Scott Amendment, which would gut the Bipartisan Postal Service Reform Act by nullifying the Medicare integration proposal. Medicare integration is an absolutely key part of this bipartisan bill to provide long-term financial stability for the Postal Service. My colleague, Senator Portman, spoke recently about why these criticisms of Medicare integration are simply unfounded. This bill simply provides for future postal retirees who have, may I say, who have already paid into Medicare throughout their entire career to enroll in Part B and Part D. Roughly a quarter of postal retirees do not enroll in Medicare, even though they are eligible. This means the Postal Service is stuck.
Joe has also had to make compromises. Congress hasn't passed the Build Back Better legislation yet. And free community college is no longer part of that package. We knew that this wasn't going to be easy.
The federal government is at risk of shutting down if lawmakers in Congress don't come to this agreement by February 18th. Top Democrats and Republicans are holding meetings very quickly to reach a deal on government funding in the fourth stimulus bill. So please make sure to watch to the end of this video if you want to get the most up-to-date and reliable stimulus check information. So congressional negotiators are in danger of missing the February 18th deadline for passing a massive bill of the annual appropriations for fiscal year 2022. If an agreement is not reached soon, the federal government might shut down. A shutdown is likely, but members of the Senate Appropriations Committee from both parties warned that if negotiators blow through the mid-February 18th deadline, it increases the likelihood that President Biden will have to settle for a year-long stopgap funding measure to keep the government open. Lawmakers are worried that Biden might not have the chance to put his stamp on the nation's spending priorities.
Mr. Meeks will be presiding on our side at the briefing, the Ukraine briefing, and we want to move quickly with these. Now, that'll be up to the chairman as to the process and the rest. But we want to be as close to the Senate bill as possible so there's no delay in getting something to the president's desk. The second part is I'm never giving up on BBB.
While Democrats both branches of Congress, it comes amid a wave of Democratic retirements in the House, and the expectation is that Democrats, or even Republicans, might flip the lower chamber in the midterm elections.